Okay, so here's what you're going to need. You'll need some fabric. I recommend getting something at least 2 times as wide as the person's waist you're making the skirt for, but even better if you have more than 2 times as wide. Some scissors, a measuring tape, or even a ruler is fine, a pencil to mark with. But if you don't have a pencil for sewing with, you can just use a pen or whatever, because you're only going to be writing on the inside of the skirt, so nobody's going to see it. You also need some pins, some thread, and some elastic. So I'm not even going to be using much of this because I'm making it for my daughter who's 3. I'll probably only use maybe 15 centimeters of it. You're also going to need a sewing machine. This is my sewing machine. I'm just a beginner and this is very basic. It only cost me $90 at Spotlight, so that's pretty cheap. I couldn't even find a secondhand one for that price. Even all the different modes it's got, they're all just really simple basic things. So you don't need anything fancy to make this skirt. It's really simple. Some optional extras that I'm going to be using with this particular skirt, but you don't have to, or you can use something different. I've got some fabric glue and some cute little gems that I'm going to do a design on the skirt with. So I'm going to use those to decorate the skirt. You don't have to do that, or you can use different kind of gems or whatever you want to use, buttons, to make it look pretty. So the first thing you're going to do is decide how long you want the skirt. You can measure that up if you want, but I'm not really going to bother. I know how long I want it. I want it about this long. Okay. And you can cut that all nice and neat if you want to, but I'm not going to bother with that either. And I'm going to cut another piece the same length, because this isn't quite twice as wide as I need it to be, so I'm going to cut 2 pieces and just sew them together later. There we go. There's the first parts for our skirt. Now we're going to make the pleats in our skirt. So there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can just make some pleats like this to however wide you want them to be, and you can pin them down. And sew along the top. That's not how I'm going to do it right now though, so I'll show you the way that I'm going to do it. Because this is for my daughter and she is 3, I think an appropriate distance for each pleat is about 7 centimeters. For an adult, for myself, I would normally do 10 centimeters. So I get my measuring tape and I just put a line every 7 centimeters all the way down to the end of the skirt. Now I have all my lines across the top, every 7 centimeters apart, and I'm going to draw a line across here. So this is going to be how far down our pleats are sewn. You can measure that if you want to. You can decide however long you want them to be. I don't know how long I would want them to be because I usually just wing it. So just try and make it around about the same length all the way down, all the way across, sorry. It doesn't have to be perfect, you're not going to be able to tell. Okay, so now you have your fabric with dots every 7 centimeters across the top and a line to show how far down our pleats are going to go. And we're going to go from each dot and pinch it in, and then pin it about, I'd say about 1 centimeter in from the side, and do that with each one. So you've got your fabric pinned for both pieces of fabric at the 7 centimeter apart thingies. And so now what you're going to do is sew a line from about 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeter wide from the top down, and then go onto an angle to go to the back to the fold where this line is. So I'll just show you one. Oops. Check that you've got the right stitch first, would be wise. Just like that. This doesn't have to be perfect, but just use these ones. Use these lines here to decide how wide you're going to do it. So I put my fold on this line every time so that I can make sure it's even, but it doesn't matter that much if, where is it, if these are not perfectly even. Just try to get them reasonably accurate. Doesn't have to be perfect. So this is what the back looks like. They're all sewn down to the line. There's my white dots in the middle. And I've just done like a zigzag stitch along the top. So I went along at the back and folded these down as I went and did a zigzag stitch along the top, and that's just so that these can stay down so it's easier to work with, and also to help prevent fraying at the top. And so it begins to look something like this. Okay, so now I have my 2 pieces of fabric that I've sewn my pleats into and done a zigzag across the top so that it doesn't fray and it stays down easier. And now I need to sew these 2 together. So I need to put the 2 fronts together on the inside and then pin up this side here and sew it together. Now I have sewed down the side so these 2 pieces of fabric are together. You don't have to do this, but I just did a zigzag stitch on either side of the inside of this as well, just to prevent fraying. I didn't used to do that, but somebody convinced me that I should. But I have plenty of skirts I haven't done that on and are totally fine. So when you pull it out, this is what it looks like. That's where the seam is, just there. And now I'm just going to go put this around my little person whose skirt it's going to be, and see how much I need to trim off the edges and where I should sew it. So I've actually done quite a lot. I've done it way bigger than what she needs, but I figure it's better to have more than not enough. So I'll go measure that on her and then I'll cut off what I don't need. Always make sure that you leave, that it is still too big, because you want it to still be too big. Not way too big, but at least a little bit too big, so that you've got room to put elastic in. It's easy to slip on and off, okay? So I've measured it on her and I've put a pin in where I'm going to sew it down. That's the inside like that. Always sew it so the inside is facing the inside and the outside is facing the outside and you're sewing on the inside of the skirt. So I'm going to cut it about there and sew a seam down here. Okay, so I've sewn a hem down the side here, and if we turn it inside out, it's starting to look like a little skirt. So now we're going to make the top part of it. So now we're going to make the top hem of the skirt. So for this part, you'd want to make it more than twice as wide as you want it to be. So I probably want it about that wide. I'm going to make it about this wide. I'm just going to get my scissors and cut there. And because I'm lazy, I'm going to just rip it. Okay, so for this part, you're going to want your hem to be the same size as the top of your skirt already is. So I just measure it by going around my skirt and cutting it like that. You can get a measuring tape and do it. That would probably be more accurate. And if you make a mistake, it's really not difficult to fix. So don't worry too much about that. So I'm going to measure this to the same as the top side of my skirt and then sew it along the edge so that it is the same as the top of the skirt. So now I've sewed down the side of this, so we've got a circle. And we're going to pop our skirt with the outside of the skirt facing you. Pop it inside this circle. Just pop it inside this circle like this. So make sure that your hem is on the outside of the skirt, and make sure that the part that you want facing on the outside of the skirt is facing the part that you want facing on the outside of this. So do outside to outside, and then just pin it up along the top.
Scared you?
Okay, so once you have the top of this pinned, you're going to go around and you're going to sew a line along the top. You can also sew a zigzag above that to stop it from fraying, but that's up to you. You don't have to. Okay, now I've sewn this along the top, and when you turn it inside out, it is starting to look like a skirt, which is awesome. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew on the elastic. Now I'm only using a really small amount of elastic, and that's because I want it to be able to, this is going to be way too big for my daughter, so I want it to be able to fit her, scrunch up and fit her, but I also want it to be able to stretch out enough so that she can wear it for a little while. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to, on the inside here, I'm going to sew my elastic. I'm going to sew one side to here and the other side to the opposite side there. I'm not going to do it all the way around. I'm only going to do it on the back. So I'm going to sew one side there and one side to the other side, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I've done that. So this is what it looks like now. I've got this sewn from one side to the other, and this is really big and flappy, but that's okay because we're going to stretch it out as we sew the hem. But first I'm going to sew the hem to the front. So to do that, I'm just going to put the hem down like this all the way around. I'll just do that and then I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what it looks like now along the front. So I'm just going to sew a line along here, which will sew down the back as well. So I've got quite a lot of room here to be able to sew it down. So I'm just going to sew along there and then I'll show you what it looks like. So here you can see where I've sewn down that top part of the skirt, and now I'm getting onto the part where it's got the elastic. So what I'm going to do for this part is fold it down like I was doing, and I've got the elastic, but the, can't see very well. The elastic is just here and it's making it you know, the elastic's quite far away from the fabric. I need to pull the elastic quite a lot at the back here for it to go to the same length as the fabric. Now we don't want to sew the elastic down onto the fabric. What we want to do is just fold the fabric over. Make sure my elastic is about there. Okay, so I'm folding the fabric over and I'm going to sew it and stretch out the elastic while I'm sewing it so that it will be able to, I don't know what I'm trying to say, you'll see. This is what my skirt looks like now. I've sewn down the top like that, and I sewed it down from this side so that I could see what I was doing. And it's not perfect. Some of the bits are wider than the others, but I really don't think it matters. I don't think you can tell. And for this part where I've already sewn down the elastic, I just stretched it out as I was sewing it so that I could sew a straight line and so I could sew it reasonably straight. And some of these parts are thicker than the parts at the front, but the front part is the part that you really need to make sure the hem is the same length all the way along. The back doesn't matter so much because you're not going to be able to tell with this elastic in the back. Now from here you can just hem the bottom and be finished, and that can be it if you want. I'm going to add an extra part of this dark blue to the bottom here, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I have my dark blue fabric that I'm going to use for the bottom of the skirt. You can measure how much you want to use at the bottom and add a couple of centimeters for the hem, but I'm not going to bother. Once again, I'm just going to cut it wherever and rip it so that I can use for the bottom of my skirt. There we go. It's going to be the bottom of my skirt. Now, I'm going to get my skirt. Now I have measured out the length of the bottom of the skirt and measured out the same amount on this piece of fabric that I cut out and sewed it up down the side. So now what we're going to do is sew this part to this part. So you want to make sure, again, the part you want on the outside here is facing the part you want on the outside here, and put them together like that. See? Oops. Outside facing outside. And then just pin it up all along the edge here. So once you have that all pinned up around the edge, if you open it up it looks like that. Now you need to sew along this edge here. So now I've sewed along the top here, and when you open it up, you have the bottom of your skirt. That looks very pretty. So now I'm just going to hem up the bottom. Just do that and hem along the bottom. And then I'm going to add some bling. So here is my finished skirt. It's got elastic on the back so it can open up quite wide back there. If you are following this tutorial, you can finish it right there. It looks really great, I think. Or you can add some bling, which is what I'm going to do. You can get creative and do whatever you want. So I'm just going to get some gems. I'm going to decide on a design. I'm going to get some gems and stick them on there. And here we have our finished skirt. I've put some gems on the side in a love heart shape. I got these gems from Vinnie's for $1. So I thought, why not? I can use them. And just some fabric glue, which I think cost me about $3. So yeah, I just used them to make a little heart shape, just to add an bit of extra bling to it. And then I'll show you the finished result with my daughter wearing it.
So this isn't my daughter, it's my son, because my daughter was asleep and I really wanted to make this video, but basically here's what the skirt looks like. I think it's really pretty, and I really like it, and I hope you guys too. Okay, bye!